Picture your favourite spaceship, not from a game necessarily, but any sci-fi spaceship, and I bet you could sketch out the inside of that ship, where the cockpit is, roughly where the crew sleep, where the crew gather and talk, where the cargo goes. Most of us who grew up on this stuff can draw the Millennium Falcon from memory or the Nostromo. And here's the thing, we can do that without ever having actually studied those ships, and the reason is because those ships were far more than just backdrops, they become real places. So now, picture your favourite spaceship in a game and ask yourself something. What's in that room behind the pilot seat? And here's the point I want to make right up front on this video, and you can let me know if you agree or disagree in the comment section below. Whether you can answer the question on what's in that room behind the pilot seat really determines whether the game represents the ship as a vehicle, no more, or whether it represents the ship as a vehicle as well as a place. I'm going to help you with that theory as well. Look at this video on the screen right here. It is footage released 7 years ago from YouTuber FRJ or Fridge, and it shows you coming from the room behind the Sidewinder cockpit into the cockpit itself, and just look at the difference that this makes to the actual feel of this entire vessel. The full video I'll be sure to link in the video description below. It's quite a long one and it maps out the entire interior of this ship. It's well worth watching. And this probably gives you a feeling for my take on the entire situation. I very much feel that yes, I do prefer it when ships feel like places rather than just a vehicle. And here's the thing, a lot of the games out there now are coming to this same conclusion. It's why last year we saw No Man's Sky with the Voyagers update, allowing us to not only create our own ships, but also giving us the ability to fully walk around them, customize them, set up the rooms, as well as decorate them. In other words, making them a full-on place, somewhere you can live, a home. Star Citizen has been doing this very effectively from day one, and regardless of what your feelings may or may not be toward that game, the fact it has generated so much money over the past, 14 years or so, really tells us that there is an immense demand for this type of representation of spaceships. And we could go on, there's many other examples of such games as well. And then we come to the other type of game. Let's take Elite Dangerous, and I'm not dumping on Elite because I think it easily has the best flight model in any space game out there, and we'll come to more on that as to why I think why in just a bit. But let's see what actually exists behind that seat, what exists in the room behind the cockpit. For most of us, for most part, with all the ships except one, we can't actually answer that question. There is one lone example now, and that is the new Nomad. And this is the dream a lot of people have. They want their ships, their spaceships inside these games to feel far more than just vehicles, just things you fly from A to B, or get into fight with, or just do your trading with, whatever. They want them to actually feel like a home. For me, it's the difference between driving a very high quality, a very nice car, or having a yacht where you're not just sitting at the pilot seat, you've actually taken a whole location along with you that's got a galley, it's got places to sleep, and everything else as well. And it's this very fact that really drives the demand for ship interiors. It means that ships stop just being a health bar, they stop just being a box which you fly around. And perhaps one game more than any other understands this very well indeed. The game is called Starship Simulator, and this game, essentially made by one man, Dan Govia, is building this dream in extreme high fidelity. The ship in the game is a Magellan-class vessel, and it's not going to be the only one, eventually there'll be more, but it takes more than just a little bit of inspiration from Star Trek and the Enterprise. So the Magellan-class ship has over 200 rooms across 7 different decks. And here's where it gets really interesting. Every single hull panel, every cable is run and designed in CAD software. And that means that this ship has not just been assembled in a 3D format, but it's actually been fully engineered. It's got a load of engineering drawings to go along with it. In other words, the ship has been designed as though someone had to really go out there and then build it. And it makes these places feel real. It makes them feel like a home. It makes them feel like a place that moves with you. And like I said, Star Citizen does the same sort of thing, and there's a reason that YouTuber Morphologist often reviews these videos as an architect. Because firstly, he is an architect by trade, and secondly, these ships are so realistic in the way that they actually feel like places, that they feel like full-on environments, that some of that knowledge does translate. Before I start pushing this subject too hard though, this whole idea of ships being vitally important to the games, I know a lot of people out there do approach it from a different direction. They feel that the game world is all important and that is primary, and I don't disagree with that. A game without a high quality game world is not really a good game at all. But that doesn't mean that we can't also have good ships as well, ships in addition to that. Let's take No Man's Sky, for example. No Man's Sky got absolutely trillions of different planets and over the years has evolved into arguably one of the most comprehensive space games out there. But does that mean that despite having such a rich world to explore, that it shouldn't have interior of ships, that ships shouldn't feel like places? Well, Hello Games answered this question last year with the Voyagers update. Here, you can build your own Corvette piece by piece, and you do so both on the outside as well as on the inside. And what does that mean? Well, it means that people now have ships with sleeping quarters, war rooms, and galleys, and pretty much anything that you can imagine. And then you get to fly this. You also get to step out of the pilot seat mid-flight and walk around the ship whilst you're in space. You can see the stars drifting by, you can see the exterior. And if you really want, you can open the hatches and go full EVA, leaving your ship whilst it's still in space. And there's another example that we could talk about with spaceships. It's X4 Foundations. Now this game focuses more on the environment itself, of course, trade routes, factories, fleets, economies, all that stuff. And nobody needs to leave the cockpit to actually run a business. You only have to get out to do a few things here and there. And the entire ship interiors are not really that vital to this game, at least not for the most part. But they do have their place. You can, of course, get up, you walk to the back of your ship, climb down the ladder, and then stand underneath your own ship in the docking pad. And it's here that makes you realise that X4 ships have to actually fit into the spaces they land in, because they land on real things. They match the speed to dock with something larger, because you do have small, medium and large ships and even extra large ships, and the smaller ones can often dock with the larger ones. And that means they flip and spin around whilst you're standing inside them. And yeah, you might have a smaller interior and it actually fits inside the larger one, and all of the physics works. You don't fall through floors, you might have different orientation to the other ship, and you can watch the whole thing have its dance, quite majestic actually, whilst in space, using either the external cams or just watching out some of the windows. Yet X4 also takes this a little bit further with the believability of spaceships. And this largely comes down to the first bit that I mentioned, the idea of the X4's game world, the real economies. And think about it, ships, weapons, ammo, stations, all of these are manufactured out of genuinely a simulated economy. They're all essentially, to all intents and purposes, real. And that means that there's thousands of ships that are trading, and all these are moving around the galaxy. And that means that with your own fleet of the many ships you may own, your freighter runs its route whilst you're off doing something else. And if it gets intercepted whilst you're distracted or whilst you're asleep or, whatever else, your ships essentially have lives. They live without you, and that means they can get fully destroyed. So this whole idea of ships existing as full-on locations. You have your massive freighters in X4. They're flying around doing their own thing, but you can also walk in them, and whilst they're doing all those things, you may find you've got a swimming pool in there with no water in it, unfortunately, because that's just how X4 works. You'll find a bar that actually isn't all that functional, but nonetheless, they feel very much alive. And all that brings us back to where I started on this video, because Elite Dangerous is, it's kind of ahead in some areas. It's not fully behind, because there's this whole sheer sensation of flying, that thing I wanted to mention. You have the mass, the sound, perhaps some of the best sound effects in gaming, full stop, and many of your ships also have a personality. In fact, I'm fully of the belief that if you remove the art for any specified ship and you just flew a grey box but kept the specific flight mechanics for that ship, most people would be able to name which ship they're actually flying, because most of the ships in Elite feel very distinct, and it's one of the best things about Elite. But the one area that it's missing, and the one thing you still keep getting a lot of people asking about, is ship interiors. And this isn't just about pure gameplay that it may or may not bring, but it's about making the ship feel like a place that you want to be. Like I say, it's the difference between having a speedboat or a yacht, or having a Cessna 152, or fully owning your own version of Air Force One. And what's so interesting to me about all of this is how many space games are actually heading in this direction, and it's actually a very good direction. So do let me know in the comments section below, is the ship the game for you, or is the ship just how you play the game? Let me know what you think about that. How important should the ship actually be? Thanks for watching this video all the way through. There is another one on the screen right here. Do take care, and I'll catch you next time.